we decided it was time. A little puppy would be sublime. To survive this pandemic, we needed a burst of joy.
Hi everybody, Shannon here from Looking for Lilith Theater Company. Are you ready for a really meta experience? A year ago, November of 2021, we produced Common Threads, Interwoven Portraits of a Pandemic. This project was created by the 18 Looking for Lilith ensemble members during and just after the height of the COVID pandemic. From January to June of 2021, we conducted story circles with lots of different groups of people across Kentucky, inviting them to talk about their experiences in the year 2020, what they learned, what they wanted to take with them, what they wanted to leave behind. We heard stories of how grieving changed during the pandemic. We talked with elders at an elder care facility. We talked with young parents about pandemic overwhelm, being in the home with their kids for months on end. We talked with people about the joy of how their physical presentation changed as societal expectations changed. And then we invited our ensemble members to listen to the story circles, reflect, and create 10-minute digital responses of their choice, whether that be a film, whether that be a group of songs, paintings, an audio play. We were trying to create digital pieces because we didn't know when we would be able to return to live theater again. Well, at the point that we were ready to release them, it was possible to be in the theater. And so we then invited different ensemble members to watch the digital pieces and create live performance responses. So you are going to see over the next several days an episodic digital release of the live performance of the live responses to the 10-minute digital pieces. I said it was going to be meta. As you look back a year later, reflect upon how much has changed for you, how much has not. I really invite you to watch all of the episodes. They tie together with the common thread of the stories that we listened to. But we present them to you individually to enjoy in bite-sized morsels during this holiday season. Thank you. Enjoy.
So much grief this year, but it's sometimes
It feels impactful, and it feels like 2020 didn't even exist.
When you talk about last year, it's like really talking about 2019 because it is so everything that you knew is so different now.
When someone dies, a family member, we go over to someone's house, and that's when all the old photos come out, and you get to learn about the person. You know how your mom's your mom, or your dad's your dad, or your grandma's your grandma. But learning about them as a human and as their own individual person has always intrigued me.
In my culture, in the African American culture, you never really say someone died. you say someone passed away or they transitioned.
In our family, death is not something that we don't discuss. Death is something that we make a part of our lives and our family because everyone's going to do that.
When I think about losing people, there are a few moments that stick out in my head.
Agreed. There are more memories of moments than photos sometimes.
When my grandmother got sick, we had called in hospice. She was one of those old hard-headed women who thought if she just went home, she could get better, with some aspirin and a wet wash rag. And she we witnessed her reliving her life in those last few days. She would slip in and out of consciousness, and you could see her hands crocheting. Or one time she woke up hitting the pillow because she thought she dropped a cigarette. She hadn't smoked since the 80s. I've thought back to those moments many times over the last year and how it would have been different through this pandemic.
But mostly, it was different with the pandemic. My aunt died. They were able to bring her home to die, and I had to have supplies so that people could come and see her safely. And it's different when you're watching someone die versus when you come and they're already dead. It's different when I'm in this room and I'm seeing her hooked up to an oxygen machine. And in some ways, I will always have that last image of her as frail. And I just remember having to, so many wipes and the face masks. And there was certain protocols that we had to follow for hospice. And it just felt so different from in the way in which it had been celebratory before. It was not celebratory because we were just so aware that if we were not careful, we could very well be here again. And I am a Baptist. I believe in God, but I'm not a Christian in forcing my religion type of Christian. But church is important to me. And one thing that was so hard about her passing was that we could not go to church. And afterwards, eating and drinking.
And you eat. There's always a lot of comfort in food.
Yeah, food is one thing I have to say through this pandemic has changed. And now during the pandemic, you can't have food in the funeral home. I want my fried chicken and potato salad.
Ham biscuits and lemon cake.
Relish trays and deviled eggs.
And it was always the good food, like the good holiday food. Fried chicken, potato salad, cornbread, okra. The green beans with the bacon thing you put down in them. My green beans come from a can.
Agreed.
But I'll always remember this, because this was one thing that stayed the same. Even if you were drinking alcohol, you weren't drinking alcohol. And everyone knows that it's alcohol. You drink it in covered cups. When my aunt passed away, and when I got back up to Louisville, I just felt this immense guilt because I was so scared to talk to my aunt. I was so scared to talk to her because every time I talked to her, I started crying. And I feel so bad that I didn't talk to her when she physically could talk. Sometimes
the guilt.
The guilt is harder to bear than the grief.
The guilt. My grandma passed away last year, and I didn't spend too much time with her because I had never been close with my dad, and he started coming back around her, and I didn't want to put myself around that energy or my son.
I remember being
being
younger and he would just like
and he would just like randomly come.
Like my grandma would even take me to see him in jail and stuff. Like she would try her hardest to make us have a relationship, but
he
he didn't try his hardest.
hardest.
She would call me, and when I got back into talking good or whatever, you know, the pasta salad your mama makes, I had been craving that. Of course, Nay, I'll bring you some. And I never really got around to it because it was one of those things where it just was like, oh yeah, well, she'll be there. I'll do it, you know, next week. I got this to do this week, so I'll do it next week, or I'll do it tomorrow, because she'll be here. She is just one person I thought would always be around in my life, was my Nene. And I never got to get her favorite food. And that's on me. It's like, too. So I didn't do my last duty to like make her happy. And I hope she knows how sorry I am that I didn't get to give that to her.
Yeah. I want to say that I fully respect and appreciate your decision to look after yourself and your son first. As it pertains to your father,
I really want to acknowledge that I am the child of a father like that.
Same. And he spent a lot of my life in and out of prison, in and out of, on and off of drugs.
Always wanting this strong relationship with them and feeling like no matter what
I did, it wasn't good enough to maintain a consistent relationship with them.
And it wasn't good enough to keep my father off drugs. It's the idea that like grieving, you can grieve someone who has passed away in the physical body, but there's also grieving the relationship that you had or the relationship that you wanted.
I feel you. There are different levels of grief. Grieving for someone who's still alive. Grieving that relationship for what could have been, what should have been.
And I, for a long time, have grieved the relationship I wanted with my dad.
I had to let go of the expectation of the relationship that I thought I would want with a dad, you know? I have friends who have really great dads, and I was envious of that, and I'm still envious.
When you talk about making the decision to like have the relationship with them that you're gonna have, I just like,
that's so fucking hard.
It's really fucking hard. He's like a stranger. Well, why is he coming around?
Truth is, I don't know him, and he doesn't know me.
And then I tried to give him a chance. After a while, I started letting him hang around, and I started to like him. And that's when, you know, they disappear. They find another interest, like the streets or another woman. So, you know.
You can't come with me, baby.
And I think about so many things that he has done. It is so sad.
I was always treated differently from his side of the family. Even though they all had their own issues. Like being beaten on Saturday but told to sit in the front row on Sunday because his father was a deacon. So not only do I have this father who was never taught how to love properly, but I also have this conflicting battle inside me about religion. Because if these were God-fearing people, why did they beat their children?
We're like the same person. I mean, the only reason that I was ever close with that side of my family was my grandma. Because she tried so hard. And when I was first born, he was in jail. Didn't get out till I was like 5.
And I feel like I was stigmatized for being my father's daughter. I look a lot like him. We even have similar jobs, creating with our hands, but I'm not him. If anything, he taught me how not to be.
Same. My dad's side of the family, they're all educators. My dad was a mathematician before he got on drugs. And so it's very much like they really just care about esteem. They stopped talking to me. No one reached out. I didn't find out that my dad was incarcerated or that one of my aunts had passed away until 6 months after it happened. I remember always wanting this relationship with them. Even the fact that he's clean now, still the inconsistencies that affect me as a 29-year-old. For all intents and purposes, well-adjusted adult person are major.
It's almost just as bad as grieving for someone who's passed on. And I get a lot more closure when someone passes on.
Agreed.
If I've learned anything about the amount of grief I've experienced over the last year, is that I have this undying sense of knowing they didn't cross over alone. Call it what you will, but I saw it when my grandma was transitioning. She had a visitor.
Life beyond death. That is something that my family vastly believes in.
Transition.
I had a dream about my grandmother. She told me, Lala, it's okay.
With my grandma, a man with a suit and a red tie came and told her she was going to have to go with him soon and that my grandfather was going to have to stay behind. She woke from it and wanted to know where her husband of 62 years, where the hell he was going.
My mom, as my aunt was passing, she kept having these dreams where my aunt and my maternal grandmother, like they were getting in a car, her dad, and she kept trying to get in the car with him. And he was like, baby, you can't go with us.
And that brought me a lot of peace that you don't pass alone.
I just think that's like God just trying to let you know, just trying to prepare you in a way.
I know. Whenever I'm having a supremely rough time, my grandma would come to me in my dreams. It's like 2021 and she's here.
And that's my way of knowing, like, everything is going to be okay.
Because truly, once that happens, everything is okay.
Everything is going to be okay.
Everything is going to be okay.
Everything is going to be okay.
Hi, I'm Adama Abramson, and thank you for watching Could've. Looking for Lilith Theater Company is such a beautiful and interesting place to work because they always are interested in lifting up the voices of the unheard. And Could've was such a really cool project to be a part of because it talked about the grief and loss and how we live and experience our families in a way that really coincided with how the pandemic really highlighted those effects and those feelings. And I was really grateful to be a part of that process, to bringing those stories to life and showing just how beautiful and painful love and family are. And I hope that you will give to Looking for Lilith Theater Company and make art happen.